$5. That's a coffee. That's a gas station snack. That's the difference between a $14 lunch and a $9 lunch. It is the most dismissible amount of money in your daily life, the amount that disappears without a decision, absorbed into a morning without a second thought. It is also, invested consistently from age 22, worth $1.7 million by the time you're 65. Not $1.7 million if you get lucky. Not $1.7 million if the market does something extraordinary. $1.7 million at the historical average return of the S&P 500, roughly 10% annually, with no other input than $5 a day, every day for 43 years. The math is not complicated. The math is almost insultingly simple. What is not simple is the distance between knowing the math and living it, between understanding what $5 a day becomes and actually moving $150 a month into an account before your brain finds a reason not to. This is every level of what happens when you do. Level 1. The first $150. You are 22. You open the account on a Tuesday. Not a motivated Tuesday. Not a new year, new me Tuesday. Just a Tuesday when you watched something online and the number landed differently than it had before. Not as inspiration, as arithmetic. And you pulled out your phone and opened a brokerage account before the feeling wore off. The whole process took 19 minutes. You invested $150. The account sits at $150 for 3 days before you check it again. It has earned $0.31, 31 cents. You screenshot it. You send it to nobody, but you look at it for longer than 31 cents has ever deserved. Here is what actually happened in those 3 days, though you cannot see it yet. You broke the most important financial barrier that exists. Not the money barrier, not the knowledge barrier, the inertia barrier. The specific, powerful, almost physical resistance between knowing you should invest and actually doing it, between the information and the motion. Most people live their entire financial lives on the wrong side of that barrier. They know, they intend, they do not move. You moved. The first level, the account being open, is worth more than any single contribution you will ever make. Because a closed account earns nothing. An open one, with 31 cents in it, is already doing the one thing money is supposed to do. It is working. Level 2, the first year. Month 3, you almost stop. Not because anything went wrong, because nothing went visibly right. The market did something in February, a correction, the kind that happens 12 times a decade and feels, every single time, like the beginning of a collapse. And your $450 became $391. You lost $59. You checked the account 4 times in one day. You Googled, should I pull out of the market at 11 p.m., and read 3 articles that contradicted each other and closed the browser more anxious than when you opened it. You did not pull out. Not because you were disciplined, because the amount was small enough that selling felt embarrassing. You would have lost $59 and paid taxes on the transaction for the privilege. You stayed in by accident of scale. This is one of the underappreciated gifts of starting small. The stakes are low enough that inaction is easier than panic. By month 12, you have contributed $1,800. The account sits at $2,014. You have earned $214 without doing anything except not stopping. $214 feels like nothing. It is nothing relative to what it becomes. It is everything relative to what zero compounds to. The second level, your first year of investing is not about the returns. It is about building the evidence that the system works. Small, real, undeniable evidence that money placed correctly does something money left in a checking account does not. It grows. Level 3, Year 5. You are 27. The account has $12,400 in it. You contributed $9,125 across 5 years. The market gave you $3,275 you did not earn through any action or decision. It arrived because you were present, because you stayed. Because in month 3 of year 2, when the account dropped again and the feeling came back, the sell it, move it somewhere safe, wait until things settle feeling, you recognized it this time as the same feeling you'd had before, the one that was wrong before, and you let it pass. You have now lived through 2 market corrections with money in the market. You are not fearless. You are something more useful than fearless. You are experienced. You know what the drop feels like from the inside, the specific quality of the anxiety, the way certainty inverts, the way the news becomes very loud. You know it passes. You have evidence. This is the thing that cannot be bought with money or learned from a book. It can only be accumulated through time in the market with real money on the line. At year 5, something shifts in how you see the account. It stops being a number you are building and starts being a number that is helping you build. The $12,400 is not sitting still. It is moving. Generating $1,240 a year in average returns, growing, adding to the base, compounding the base. The third level. At year 5, the account begins to feel like a partner. Not a large one, not a decisive one, but present, contributing, showing up every year with something that wasn't there before. Level 4, Year 10. You are 32. The account is at $31,200. You have contributed $18,250. The market has contributed $12,950. For the first time, the gap between what you put in and what the account holds is large enough to feel significant. Nearly $13,000 arrived without a second job, without overtime, without any transaction except the one you set up automatically 3 years ago and have mostly forgotten to think about. You forget to think about it deliberately. This is the most important financial habit you have developed, the automation that removes the decision from the month. The $150 leaves your account on the 3rd of every month before you have the opportunity to redirect it. You cannot spend what you do not see. At 32, you also start to understand something the numbers alone couldn't show you. Your friends who did not start are beginning to feel it. Not dramatically, nobody announces it, but in the conversations about money that happen between people in their early 30s when the abstract becomes concrete, when retirement stops being a concept and starts being a calculation. A colleague mentions she hasn't started investing yet. She's 33. She'll start soon. She means it. She has been meaning it for 4 years. You say nothing beyond suggesting she opened the account today before she leaves the building while the intention is present. She nods. You don't know if she does it. The fourth level. At year 10, the money you did not invest is no longer theoretical. It is a real, calculable gap between where you are and where you would be. For the people who haven't started, that gap is now 10 years wide. It will not narrow on its own. Level 5, Year 20. You are 42. The account is at $114,000. You have contributed $36,500 over 20 years. The market has contributed $77,500. For every dollar you put in, the market has added $2. The ratio is shifting. The machine is beginning to outwork you. At $114,000 generating 10% annually, the account adds an average of $11,400 per year on its own. That is roughly $950 a month from $5 a day. Let that sit for a moment. $5 a day is now generating $950 a month. Not consistently, not guaranteed. The markets are not straight lines, but in average terms, across average years, the account you funded with a daily coffee equivalent is producing nearly $1,000 a month in returns without your involvement. You have not thought about this account every day. Some months you forgot it existed. Some years it dropped and you ignored the drop because you had learned over 20 years of evidence that the drop is not the story. The recovery is the story. The line across 2 decades is the story. At 42, you are not wealthy. $114,000 is significant, but not life-changing in isolation. What is life-changing is the trajectory. The line doesn't flatten from here. It steepens. The fifth level. At year 20, the account stops feeling like savings and starts feeling like infrastructure. Something underneath your life that runs whether or not you pay attention to it. The financial equivalent of a foundation. Invisible, load-bearing, essential. Level 6, Year 30. You are 52. The account is at $339,000. You have contributed $54,750. The market has contributed $284,250. Read that again. You put in $54,750 across 30 years. The market put in $284,250. The market has outcontributed you by more than 5 to 1. You are now, by any honest accounting, a minority contributor to your own wealth. The money is doing most of the work. You are doing almost none of it. This is what compound interest actually means, not as a concept, not as a graph in a textbook, but as a lived reality at 52 when you open an app on your phone and see a number that is 5 times larger than what you actually put in, and you understand that the gap will only widen from here. The account is generating approximately $33,900 per year in average returns. That is $2,825 a month from $5 a day, from a decision you made at 22 on a regular Tuesday because the math landed the right way at the right time and you moved before the feeling wore off. You have friends who make $2,825 a month at jobs they don't particularly love. Your account makes that amount and has no feelings about the work at all. The sixth level. At year 30, money stops being something you manage and becomes something you supervise. The role has changed. You are no longer building the machine. The machine is running. Level 7. Year 43. You are 65. The account is at $1,700,000. You contributed $78,475 across 43 years. Approximately $78,000 of your own money, moved in $150 increments across a working lifetime, has become $1.7 million. The market contributed $1,621,525, 20 times what you put in. At a 4% safe withdrawal rate, the figure most retirement researchers agree on as sustainable indefinitely, $1.7 million generates $68,000 a year, every year. Without touching the principal. The principal continues to grow. The account does not run out. The money outlives the need. You did not get here by being extraordinary. You did not get here through a windfall or a stock tip or a moment of financial genius. You got here because at 22, on a Tuesday, you invested $150. And then you did it again the next month, and the month after that. And across 516 months, you did it 516 times. Some months enthusiastically, and some months automatically, and some months while the market was dropping and the news was loud and the feeling said stop. You did not stop. The math does not reward intelligence. It does not reward income above a threshold. It does not reward excitement or attention or effort. It rewards one thing and one thing only: time in the market. And the only way to have 43 years of time in the market is to start at 22. The seventh level. $5 a day is not an investment strategy. It is a proof of concept. It is the minimum viable input for the most powerful financial force in human history. The proof that the machine works does not require large inputs. It requires consistent ones. The question was never whether you could afford $5 a day. The question was whether you would move before the feeling wore off. Somewhere tonight, someone is buying a coffee. It costs $5.40. They tap their card. They don't think about it. It is not a meaningful transaction. It is background. It is Tuesday. Somewhere else tonight, someone is on their phone, 19 minutes into opening a brokerage account, about to make their first $150 contribution, feeling slightly ridiculous about the smallness of it. One of those people will have $1.7 million at 65. The other will have had a lot of coffee. This is not a story about deprivation. You are not being asked to stop buying coffee. You are being asked to notice that $5 exists in your day, in 12 different places, spent 12 different ways, none of them memorable, and to redirect one of those instances once a day to the only place where $5 does not stay $5, where it becomes something else. Slowly, invisibly, over a timeline so long that the transformation is easy to dismiss because it is impossible to feel in real time. You cannot feel compound interest. You can only see it, but only if you start and only if you stay. The account is free to open. The minimum contribution at most brokerages is $1. The historical average return of the S&P 500 has held for over a century through depressions and wars and pandemics and crises that all, at the time, felt like the end of the line. None of them were. The line continued. It always has. Open the account tonight. Move the $150 before the feeling wears off. The math will do the rest. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.